seen this slide every week, so I won't spend too much time here, but this is really just to say that you're not alone on your journey, and we have lots of ways that we can assist you with technical issues, if you need to deploy Viva Engage, if you just need help driving use of it within your organization, what we call adoption and change management. So all of those things, lots of programs, and you can use your customer success manager and our team to help you navigate those options. All right, so this week, as I mentioned, we're doing a deeper dive. Just for anybody who may have missed the last couple of weeks, initially we had intended, we expected customers attending to be existing Yammer customers that, were just wanting to expand to using the Viva Engage app and Teams. And what we heard from you during the first session is that half from option 1 and 2/3 from option 2, or the other way around, but a lot of you have not used Yammer or Viva Engage. And also for clarity, the product name was called Yammer until last summer when Yammer joined the Viva family. And so right now we're in the midst of a rebranding. So every Yammer app, the one in Teams, the one in Outlook, the web, the desktop, the mobile, all of that will be renamed Viva Engage over hopefully the course of this calendar year. And that's already in progress. So whether we say Yammer or Viva Engage, always understand that we're talking about the same thing. I'm very much looking forward to when all the rebranding is done and we can just call it Viva Engage and not have any more confusion. But all of that said, because many of you were new to Viva Engage in general, we wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive so that you had a better understanding of the features, the benefits, and the value to your organizations. We have lots of talented people, like Vishal, we have on the call that can help with more technical discussions. We have options for getting new training resources and help driving adoption. So like our goal here is to make sure you understand what the product does and how it can help your organization so that you can make a decision on whether you want to move forward or not. So like that's our goal, is so that you understand the benefits it has and that you get your questions answered, or we get connected you with people who can answer those questions. So focusing on knowledge. So this is like our last pillar that we're looking at. We started with communities and self-expression in week 2. Last week we covered leadership, so this week we're finishing up the discussion with knowledge. I will say that I've been working in the IT industry for just at 30 years as of last month, and I will say that what I've been working for most of that time is the first box, which is that I can't find what I'm looking for. So literally when I started working with what we called portals in the old days, so this would have been around 2000, the number one problem is I can't find what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, despite all of our technological advances, that seems to still be a challenge. So getting answers and like the right answers for the right people and systems is still difficult. Because of that, we incur costs, right? So like the time that I delay in responding to a customer, the time delay of me actually performing my job because I'm looking for information that should be readily available, all of that has a cost. It may not be an obvious cost, but there's a cost to not being able to locate information quickly. The remote working, so whether it's hybrid work or remote work, my team is global, so we're fully remote. We can go into an office, but the people we work with on our team will not be there for the most part. You don't have the knowledge sharing that occurs when you're physically with each other, right? So you're not walking over to somebody's desk, you're not chatting over lunch or in the break room. So it's a little different. So you don't have that chance, or serendipitous, as we say here, because apparently we like to be fancy, but we don't have those serendipitous opportunities of just, running into people because they happen to be on our path back from the coffee machine. And obviously, there was a lot of overhaul with the Great Reset during the pandemic. And then also with all of the layoffs in tech industry specifically, I would say that there is significant knowledge leaving our organizations as part of these different events. So whether they're employee initiated or employer initiated, people are leaving for various reasons. And so knowledge is walking out that door unless we're taking actions to prevent that from happening, unless we're actually like capturing the knowledge and making it discoverable within the organization and easily findable, not sure that's a word, but findable by employees. So Answers in Viva is one way that you can address this problem. And so we'll do a demo in a short bit, but basically you can see here, it's really easy. You just type in your question. It's going to look for questions that are similar in nature, so that if somebody's asked the question before, you don't have to post a new one. You can actually just go find what the right answer is from the previous time it was asked. You can mark best answers. This rewards people for taking time to contribute their knowledge. So when you have a question that like hundreds of people are following and reacting to, you mark that best answer, and that way that person knows they've had an impact. Additionally, you know that anybody coming later to ask the same question is going to see that best answer, and they will have the right one. You can upvote crowdsourced responses or questions. And so upvoting will get them more attention and priority in the community or in answers. And so that way people understand like the things that are really important and like maybe need the most urgent attention. You can assign experts to route the questions. So taking the people we know can answer those questions accurately and tagging them and making sure they answer them quickly. Searching through previously asked and answered questions. I will say some of the things that I've learned because I was searching for something else. So like I'll be working on a presentation or on a project for a customer, and I'm searching our intranet, and like I find stuff I wasn't looking for, but I actually like end up finding new information that's really beneficial to my job. So there's value in just kind of like browsing what people are asking and answering. Avoiding duplication of questions. So the fact that the machine learning will find similar questions means that we don't ask the same question and have it answered differently or multiple times, you know, wasting people's time, cluttering up the question and answer kind of inventory or database. So like super helpful so that you don't have that duplication of content. And then there is an integration. You don't have to, but there's an integration with Viva topics. And so you can actually tag the topic so you can actually see related questions. So like if you're asking a question about topic A, then maybe topics B, C, and D are also relevant. And so you're actually going to get all of that information presented to you. So you can see here, it's as simple as typing your question, adding details, adding topics, and then you can also discover new topics. So like it's always learning from your behavior as a person. Obviously, there's privacy guards around this, but by understanding what questions you're asking, what topics you're following, is going to present additional recommendations. So it's, you know, not really much different than other systems we use in life, that they're trying to kind of curate information to answer your next question before you ask it. Helping your peers. So like we talk a lot about the benefits for the person that's looking for information, but it's also important for the people that are helping so that you're able to share your expertise with the organization. So you see a feed of questions where you see where it says questions for you that's underlined. You can actually see questions that are things that maybe you could answer, and you can go address those. You get badges, you can mark best answers. And so it's really a great opportunity, not only to get help, but also to offer help as well. And so you actually get badges and awards for helping your colleagues. So it's a great opportunity. You can see how many times you've answered questions, people's reactions to that, their likings. So all of that is something maybe you use at your performance review time or just to share with your manager. Like, you know, this is the impact that I've had, albeit virtually, but this is the impact I've had in helping others. Like that's one of our core priorities at Microsoft, is like building from the work of others and helping others. So like nobody's in it for themselves. Like part of how we're evaluated is how we're working with one another to produce better outcomes. So you can see in your analytics, you can see a view of how you're contributing. So this is what I was mentioning, like something that might be a great tool for when you're preparing for a performance review discussion. You can actually see like your impacts on Q&A, the people you've helped, the time that's been saved. You can see the questions you're asking and the answers you're providing. So you can kind of see that ratio of give and get. We have the concept, I think, in the world of pay it forward. So like it would be good to have a good ratio of people you're helping with questions you're asking so that you're contributing to the community and not just benefiting from it. And then you can actually see, as an administrator or somebody in a knowledge manager role, you can actually see time saved by Viva answers. And so once again, this is just using calculations to say the fact that somebody came and got an answer quickly, we're assuming it would take X amount of time otherwise. And so you can actually see the impact that answers in Viva is having on your organization. All right, so let me swap out. I'm going to go off camera while I demo. Let me get my other screen shared. And this will be super fast. If I can find my window anyway. It is loading. All right. Sorry, it lost my link. So it's taking me 1 second, but it will be there momentarily. See, Fernando, this is when I need you to like tell a joke or run a poll. All right, we are loading. Screen is loading. All right. Now Teams does not be nice to me, but we will get there. Here we go. All right. Let me maximize this so you can see my screen a little bit better. All right. Vishal, let me know if there's any issues because I can't see the chat window while I have this maximized. All right, so this is just kind of the demo half. So we talked about it from a PowerPoint perspective. So we're going to go through just a little walkthrough in the actual answers in Viva feature. So once again, the whole objective here is for people to ask questions and find information quickly and effectively. Obviously, the value of this grows over time because you're building up that database of questions. So we're going to click on answers in Viva, and you can see that I've got the questions for me. You can see I've got my activity. So these are things that are actually recommended to me as our logged in user Lydia here. So I'm going to post a question. I have a question about virtual team building that I would like to ask. And so you can see that Lydia's question is, what are the favorite virtual activities for a virtual offsite event for the team? In this case, we're going to assume that none of these questions are what Lydia is looking for. And so we're going to actually post this question. And then we're actually going to tag a topic. So here we have Viva topics that already exist within this organization. And so we're going to click virtual team building as a Viva topic so that it's connected to that topic. And then we're going to post the question. And so it's really that simple. You can come in, ask your question, and you'll start getting answers from others. And so if we click over to the questions for you feed, you can actually see that there are questions that have been tagged to Lydia because either Lydia follows these topics, she's recognized as an expert in these areas. And so right within the questions for you, you can actually see that you can react on them. You don't have to click and expand all of the content in a post. So really, from a user experience perspective, super easy to go in and ask questions. And like, honestly, the biggest challenge here is just the behavioral change. So that change management aspect of not asking questions where they're asking questions today. So whether that's in person, over the phone, in a Teams chat, you know, a different way. But if you're leveraging answers in Viva, this is a great way to get all of that centralized. So if you're thinking about knowledge management initiatives, definitely something that should be on your mind. So topics, as I mentioned before, Viva Topics is integrated with answers in Viva. So we can actually see other topics that are out there. So you can follow these topics. So you'll see questions for you, you'll see additional topics, but this is a great way to kind of categorize, once again, label, tag, whatever word you like, but a way to kind of group questions and answers. And also just if you use Viva Topics, it's a great way to like tag people, tag documents and sites, and all sorts of content across the organization. But we'll keep this kind of focus on answers in Viva for the moment. And so if you click into one of these topics, like Azure Health Report, you can start seeing the questions that are related to that. And it shows you all of the people. So you can see the people that are following the topic. You can see the questions that are there. And it's just really super simple. If we scroll down, as I mentioned before, you can actually see your impact on the organization. So you can actually see Lydia's summary here of questions asked, answered, or received. You can also see more detailed analytics. That's called answers analytics. So it's the people that you've helped, people who reacted, voted, and commenting after viewing your questions that you asked and answered. And then you can see your answer summary and question summary. So this is how much you're contributing to others, and this is the questions that you're asking the community. So really a great way to understand how your contributions, and even asking questions is a contribution, because chances are it's not just your question, right? And then you can also see badges. So these are visual representations of the contributions that you're making. So questions with upvotes, answers with upvotes, answers selected as best answer. So just a really nice way to kind of say, hey, this person is a heavy contributor in the communities. They're very active. They're helping other people out and getting answers. But that's really it. I'm going to stop here and reshare my other screens, or my PowerPoint, as the case is. But just wanted to see, Vishal, do we have any questions in the chat? Or are we good to move forward? Oh, I see something in the chat. Let me get my PowerPoint back up. And I'll come back on camera. Oh, sorry, just trying to find the chat. So the knowledge manager role, as I understand it, applies to like Viva topics, potentially Viva Engage here, but I'm not sure if it applies to Viva Learning. And so, Vishal, if you don't know, I will take that question and get them the answer. They've added a lot of roles to Viva recently. All right. Okay. Next, so we're going to switch focus. So this was that was our last deep dive into the capability areas of Viva Engage. So now we're going to kind of roll back into put our project management hats back on, change management hats. And so we're going to talk about actually rolling out Viva Engage for employees. So I will share the links at the end. I believe I've shared them before, but just we have adoption guides for both. We have what I'll call the legacy content is still applicable today. So we have the Yammer adoption guide, but we also have Viva Engage adoption content. And you can kind of use those together and customize them for your organization. So everything I'm sharing here is really coming from those resources. So once again, this is just a very high level, simplistic view. In reality, your task list is going to be a lot longer, but these are really just things to be thinking about. So if you'll remember last week, we talked about a pilot. So doing it maybe with 100 or 200 people, maybe 500, but like some smaller group than the entire organization. So we finished our pilot. We've actually done a survey, as we shared last week. After the pilot, we've gotten feedback. We've changed, maybe updated our training content and adoption materials. And so we're ready to go. So at this point, the executive email introduction, one of these are going to be to your key executive stakeholders to make sure that they're aware of what's coming, what features are rolling out as part of enabling Viva Engage. Remember, not everything has to be turned on day one. I actually spoke with a customer last week that is opting to not roll out stories and storylines as part of phase one because they just want to get their employees accustomed to communities. They have other social tools in place. So they just want to kind of switch the communities to Viva Engage, and they want to do storylines and stories for phase two. So once again, you do not have to do everything on day one, and that's totally fine. And so these email introductions, super important to kind of say, like, these are the capabilities. These are the key, things you'll be doing within Viva Engage. 2 weeks before launch, if you're able to, have a launch, ask me anything, use the tool. host live events, training, campaigns. Once again, this is going to be depending upon your licensing. Some of those are premium features, but you can have lunch and learns, and you can have meetings and live events and things to kind of like launch the new service in your organization, and kind of help set expectations at the beginning and let people ask questions, and kind of get that stress over change kind of out of the way, because people always they will complain. Nobody likes, we don't like having our cheese moved. We don't like new things we didn't ask for. So it's always about setting expectation, why it's a benefit for the company. If you're switching from something else, to answer the why and what that looks like. So just kind of, getting everybody off on a positive first step. So the week of launch, you're going to be hosting training with your first high priority department. And we use the term department, could be group, business unit, whatever. But there should be a list of prioritized organizational units or departments, so that you actually understand who are the people that are going to be your early adopters that you're going to focus on, so that you kind of get them at the beginning of the planning for any kind of training, support, etc., so that they're able to benefit as early as possible. And then that just ripples out to the rest of the organization. Sharing and pinning announcements in Viva engaged communities to spark activity. So obviously at launch, especially if you're completely brand new to Yammer/Viva engaged, having some people in communication roles, community lead roles, to actually use Viva engage and share announcements there, pin things so that people see the important content that should be viewed by everybody. Really helpful, because then people start to understand oh, well, this is what I use this for. And oh, I come here because I know that my announcements are going to show up here. So it's that behavior change that we can create by leading by example. Also, and we'll go into this briefly, is pinning the Viva Engage app in Teams, so that you actually get your notifications in Teams. I think I mentioned this before, but by default, you get notifications in email from Viva Engage or Yammer. And so for me, that was a sore point, because I don't like email. We have a lot of great collaboration tools, so that email should be a small part of my communication that I get on a daily basis. And I was getting a lot of notifications out of what we'll call legacy Yammer. And so I turned off all of that, and now I get all of that in Teams as notifications. And that's been the single piece of functionality that got me kind of using the Viva Engage app in Teams. I still use the web browser, use my mobile device, but I love having the Viva Engage app in Teams, because then all my notifications are one place. It's less noise, it's less interruption in your day. So if you too find frustration in too many emails and too many notifications, then this may be a good solution for you. And then also, as I mentioned, Ask Me Anything events, lunch and learns, meetings, basically just some sort of launch excitement to get people the opportunity to learn, have a demo, walk them through the communities you've set up to start with, and showing them how to use the application, and let them ask questions. All right, so this is a lot of switching today, so I apologize for that, but we're gonna walk through enabling the app. So for those of you that are a little bit more technical, and I gotta figure out which window I have. Sorry, there we go. All right, too many windows. One moment. I think this is the one. All right. So I'm actually going to start at the top, but if we go to the Teams Admin Center, and I'm going to go back to the very start, so you see how I navigated here, especially for people that maybe are watching the recording later. So we're going to start at the Teams Admin Center, and if you're not a techie person, feel free to ignore me for the next 60 seconds. We're going to go under Teams Apps and Setup Policies. Now, I intentionally removed Viva Engage from the setup policies earlier, so hopefully it still doesn't show. You can see here we have multiple policies, so that you can actually have different apps pinned, different apps allowed based upon organizational role. I'm just going to go to the general one, which you get by default, which is called Global. And so you can see here I don't have Viva Engage. And so for installed apps, I would just go search for it. And so I'm going to add Viva Engage, and you'll see now that it's there. And for pinned apps, I also removed it earlier, so I'm going to go add it as a pin. And now it's going to be pinned. And so I can also move it up if I decide that it's more important. And so now it's under Viva Connections. I will also note that even though this is not a Viva Connections customer hub, our new Viva Connections desktop experience actually has links to all of the Viva apps on it. So if you're using that new experience, you can just pin Viva Connections and you don't have to worry about pinning any other Viva app, which is really nice. But I digress. Anyway, so that's it. It takes a while for this to update, so I have no idea whether this is actually going to work as planned, but we will see what happens. It's a demo, and the demo gods are not always on my side. But the setting will take a little time to change things. But yeah, it's not here. So, oh, you can actually see your IT admin has added a new app. Sorry, I got to get through this. I just created this demo environment yesterday. All right. And so I'm going to go find Viva Engage. And the reason it's not there is because I just added it with a policy, and it does take some time. It might take 15, 20 minutes, might take a little bit longer, but when it does show up, it'll look like this. And so this is our Viva Engage within Teams. All right, so that's the pinning. So basically, it's just your app setup policy, and it's just the installed apps and the pinned apps. All right, that is the end of that demo. And back to the PowerPoint. I wish you could have two screens up at once. Probably could, but then it would be super small. All right, we're doing okay on time. Okay, so now, so we talked about our go live communication plan. So now we want to talk about, like, as part of any IT service, we would generally monitor the service, measure, usage, adoption, satisfaction, all of those things. And then also, how can we improve it? So these questions should look familiar if you were not sleeping during my presentation last week. These were some of the questions we suggested for the pilot survey. So in the interest of not adding extra effort, we can reuse these as a survey for employees 2 to 4 weeks after launch. And the reason I say 2 to 4 weeks, it really just depends upon how long it takes people to start getting in the habit of using it. But you want to make sure that they've at least had a little time to start using Viva Engage, start following people, following communities, just, engaging with others. And so once again, it's just to understand, do they have any problems? Were the learning materials helpful? And then just as a point of curiosity, to rank the usefulness of the features from most useful to least useful, because that's going to tell you what people are interested in. So that's the intent of that question. We also have additional survey questions, and you can use that general scale we see often in surveys where we have strongly disagree as a 5 to strongly agree as a 1. So 5 being negative, 1 being very positive. And so this is more about how it's helping them. So feeling connected to coworkers, participating in conversations, spending less time looking for things that I can't find what I'm looking for that I mentioned earlier, having access to resources, like knowing how to engage in communities at work, feeling confused about which community would be the most valuable for me, and then difficult to prioritize community engagement. So like not understanding, like, is it part of my job? If so, how many hours a week should I spend? I will say personally, I spend at least an hour or 2 a week in communities so that I can see what's going on in all of the Viva communities and also potentially help other people and answer questions. So I try to take time every day. And then if I don't have time every day, definitely on Fridays, I do a little deeper dive into our communities. But all of that, these are all great questions to just kind of understand what kind of human challenges your employees are having, or not challenges, like if they're having successes using Viva Engage. All right, And so now we're back. So the last point, we talked about monitor. Now we're going to talk about measure a little bit. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint again. Too much bouncing back and forth. And we're going to go look at a quick look at analytics. I can find my admin center. All right. I found the window. And we're looking for, I think it's this one. Okay. All right, so I am in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, which has way too many options, but if you'll see on the left here, there's reports and there's usage. So I'm in usage. I will click it again. And so you can see I have all of these different services on the left. And so as I mentioned, we're currently rebranding Yammer to Viva Engage. So this has not been renamed yet. So we're going to click on Yammer. And so unfortunately, this is a demo environment, so it's not going to have a lot of exciting usage, but this should just give you an idea. I will preface, I probably should have started here, but I will preface this with more is not always better, but in general, if we're rolling out a new service to the organization that is for everyone, like more should be a positive indicator of success. So you can look at your activity statistics. So you can see posted, read, and liked metrics here. You can see users by the activity type, post, read, and liked. You can also see like detailed information on your employees. We can look at device usage. So you can see across web, Windows Phone, which I don't know why that's still there, Android phone, iPhone, iPad, and other, but users by device type over the period. You can see we can change from 7 to 30 to 90 to 180, so up to 6 months of data. And then we can see our groups activity. And so here we would actually see the number of active groups. So if you have a brand new Viva Engaged environment, you would expect this number to be growing. It should, kind of get somewhat stable at some point. I mean, there's always new communities, but at some point it should kind of flatten out. Like you'll have a reasonable amount that reflect your departments, your projects, your employee resource groups, like all of the different reasons you would have communities. At some point that'll stabilize and you won't see as much growth in just like the total groups, but active is what you're going to want to monitor. So like understanding like how many of your groups are active, like is it great at launch and does it fall off? And then like that would be an area of concern because then people aren't using it for some reason, and then you can try and understand like why that is declined. And then groups by activity type. So once again, just like to me, this is a little bit less exciting. The only difference is like the things that probably matter more are the read and liked. And liked means specifically important because you'll actually know that people are engaging with the content. So they're not scrolling. It's not just that they were just randomly sitting there drinking their coffee and scrolling. They actually took time to interact. So that information to me is probably the most useful. And then the last bit, which is bad because I do not have any data here, but if you go into a community, I just built this demo environment yesterday and it does not have data, so I'm sorry about that. But you'll have community insights, so you'll actually see active people and posted messages. Unfortunately, this is all 0. I was trying to find you one in production at work, but I don't know that I own any of them. But you'll see active people, active members, active non-members. So remember, in Viva Engaged, communities are open or public to the company, right? Like not public, but organization-wide communities. So you'll actually see people that are active in the community that haven't yet joined the community. So that's also helpful to see as well, because that's kind of that premise of instead of lockdown security, like we see in a lot of collaboration systems of need to know, because these communities are open by default, it's who might need to know. So it's just like, unless there's a reason to lock it down, we have employee experience, we have Viva communities within Microsoft, and it's great because you have people from all across Microsoft, and there's no membership that would have found all of us. There's no Active Directory group. There's no way to identify everybody in the company that might be interested in Viva, from sales or consulting or customer success or support or engineering or marketing. So there's just, or just as an employee of Microsoft that uses Viva, right? So this is like one of our key use cases for like the openness of communities, because you're able to find things that you wouldn't necessarily have access to otherwise. And you'll see your posted messages, read messages, reacted to messages for that community. So once again, these are just things that you can use. And I apologize for the empty demo environment. These are things that you can use to manage, the metric side of measuring success. All right, we are in the home stretch. And we're back to PowerPoint. And have to figure out a way to do this without so much switching. All right, so now we're on to the last topic, which is we're doing really well on time. So we said we were going to monitor, measure, and improve. So we talked about monitoring via surveys. We talked about using the analytics both in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, as well as within the community analytics themselves to do our measurement. And so then the question is, what's next? So these are just some ideas for thinking about a phase 2. And that implies that you don't do everything in phase 1, which I think is a really important premise of any sort of technology project. Is I think we use the expression boil the ocean, but just not trying to take everything on at once. So having a defined scope with defined success metrics so that you can actually say, we're going to do this in a reasonable amount of time successfully, and then kind of look at what's next. Use your survey results to identify opportunities for improvement. So like step number 1, let your employees tell you what is missing, whether it's a feature, whether it's, community support, whether it's training content, whatever those things are, let them tell you through the surveys what's top of mind for them. Update or enhance your end user training content. We know that there's all sorts of different ways people prefer to learn. They like in-person lunch and learns. They might like videos. They might like reading, the Microsoft support articles if they're not a video person. So making sure that there's a good range of options for people to learn how to use Viva Engage. You can do the same thing with your community owner training content. So within communities, there's this concept of community owners. So these are people that are making sure that all of the things in the community are relevant, that they shouldn't be posted maybe in a different community, that they're not posting anything inappropriate, which we hope never happens, but sometimes does. And they're also there to kind of energize the community, making sure that people get tagged to answer questions. They're there to make sure that announcements are made. So making sure that those community owners have the support and training they need. We mentioned champions, I think maybe in week 1 and 2. Keeping those people engaged. Once again, these champions do not need to be specifically for Viva Engage. You might have them for all of Microsoft 365 or technology in general at your organization, but they're your evangelists, your advocates, the people that keep everybody excited about the new technology capabilities and what it means for employees, what it means for making your life simpler, better, less, difficulty finding things, connecting to each other, whatever those benefits are, but they're there to be your champions. And then for scope, when we think about feature things, as I mentioned, I had a customer last week that's choosing not to do storylines and stories. So that's kind of like that self-expression component of Viva Engage. They're choosing to do that as a phase 2 because their organization is super conservative and would have lots of concerns about people having their personal, quote unquote, personal, professional storylines in Viva Engage. So they decided to go forward with communities as a focus for phase 1, and then storyline and stories for phase 2. Totally fine. And then last, if you're a customer that's maybe using Microsoft 365 today, and you're in the process of looking at Viva Suite, you might start with the current capabilities that are included with your Microsoft 365 license for phase 1. And then as you add Viva Suite or licensing, premium licensing for Viva Engage, then you've got the things we talked about last week, the leadership corner, the campaigns, and then what we talked about today, answers in Viva. So all of those things can be deployed as phases, and it does not need to be all at once. And that way you can take the time and effort to make sure that it's done right and that people have a really good experience as you add new things. So I'm looking at the chat.
So just check the Rijwan's questions and
Which question? I'm sorry.
Rejwan asked one question, so just go back and if you can answer. So I need some time for answering that question.
Is it about the analytics or is it a different question?
No, is there a way to add label text titles to users? Yammer, Viva Engage, something.
Let me scroll up. I did see that briefly. Scrolling. Okay. I am not aware of a visual indicator, but I will find out. I meet with the Viva Engage team, I think on Wednesday afternoon. So like I'll actually post back here in the meeting chat as well as the modern work superheroes community. I will get an answer, Rizwan, if I'm pronouncing that correct. But I will get an answer on that. But I don't think we have that today, because you're basically wanting to know that if somebody's a community moderator, that's their role, and like assigned as opposed to just activity based. So I totally understand your question, and I will get an answer, but I don't have that at the moment. Yeah, and to the questions about analytics, is we do have some APIs available where you can take the data and then do more with it, but that would definitely be a deeper conversation. And as Vishal suggested, probably a little proof of concept to make sure that you're getting the information you want out of it. All right, any other questions?